This is a place where few travellers dare to tread. A place that's been locked in bloody conflict for more than 20 years. But beyond the conflict is a land of extraordinary beauty, a place that was once the fountainhead of one of the world's oldest beliefs. For me, this is a special journey to a valley hidden deep in this strictly Islamic land, as I seek the gigantic relics of a much more ancient faith, the lost Buddhas of Afghanistan. This is a picture of Afghanistan you've probably never seen. It's an ancient realm of extraordinary culture, landscape, and people. My name is David Adams. I'm a photojournalist who specialises in travelling to the ends of the earth. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. Because hidden away in the remote Bamyan Valley are one of the unknown wonders of the world. Some of the oldest images of the Buddha, gigantic statues which few Westerners have ever seen. This was the place I remembered, a country torn apart by war. 5 years ago, I was here as a freelance war correspondent.
Now the front line is that way, and the Hezbollah militia are firing right over my position through the other side of the city.
But I knew that beyond the bombs and the bigotry was a hidden treasure, a place from where an ancient religion took its creed to the world. I swore that one day I'd seek out Bamyan and its lost Buddhas. Afghanistan is a landlocked country in Central Asia, sandwiched between Pakistan and Iran. From the capital, Kabul, I head for Herat, and then up to Mazar-e-Sharif, and then on to Bamyan. My journey starts, though, in Pakistan, at a point where most people get their first and only glimpse of Afghanistan. It's on a road well trodden by armies, smugglers, and spies, the Khyber Pass. A bus takes me on the first leg of my journey, and for the first 40 miles, we pass through the tribal area, a region run by autonomous chieftains. As a Westerner, I must take an armed guard because kidnapping and banditry are rife here. Then a familiar sight. 5 years ago, I remember passing this burnt-out tank. It's still here. We've just crossed the border into Afghanistan.
Allow this 10,000 rupees Afghani, this Kabul bank.
These kids are offering to exchange my American dollars and Pakistani rupees for the local currency, Afghanis.
So how much do they want for all of this?
He's asking for 100 rupees.
He wants 100 rupees.
Yes.
for this amount of money.
That
He
doesn't
said,
sound like the right exchange rate, is it?
yeah, I don't think so, but that's what he wants from you. If you can
The
buy
problem is, there are 40,000 Afghanis to the dollar,
I'd like
and these
some Afghan
guys
money anyway.
are only offering me 10,000.
Well, someday I think he'll be a very good businessman.
Okay.
Thank you.
After being so pleasantly fleeced by the kids, I hire an old Russian army jeep at the border. With it comes my driver Aziz and the man who'd be my guide, Abdul. And off we set towards the spectacular Hindu Kush. Slowly the road snakes towards Kabul, and as we go, it brings back a terrible sense of deja vu.
The last time I travelled up this road, it was controlled by the warlords of the Mujahideen, and there were checkpoints all the way along it, each one extracting a toll. If you refused to pay it, it could have cost you your life.
But for the moment, this part of Afghanistan is relatively peaceful. Soon I get my first glimpse of the capital, Kabul. You don't have to go far to see evidence of war. Everywhere there's rubble. We film discreetly. Photography of humans is officially banned in Afghanistan. And because this is a country suffering from trade sanctions, Westerners aren't that popular.
The people got no food to eat. Some of them, they are deprived from basic human needs. So of course they are not happy, and of course they are part of it. They are blaming the Western countries.
So they feel totally abandoned by
Yeah,
the
of course.
international
The
community.
people say we didn't commit any crime. Why they have to impose sanctions on us?
In Kabul, the law only allows foreigners to stay in one hotel, and one hotel alone, the Continental. It's an ugly building, not improved by the ravages of war. It was where I stayed last time, and it's where I stay this time. And what a lineup. One of the great tenets of Islam is that all visitors must be honoured,
Hello. How are you? Good to see
whatever
you.
their country
Hi, how are
or
you?
religion.
Good. Hello. Hello. How are you? Salam alaikum. Hello. Nice to meet you.
The plight of the Continental sums up Afghanistan. Normally, an international hotel like this would be brimming with businessmen, politicians, and power brokers. But aside from me, it's empty. A deserted monument to Afghanistan's international isolation. After years of shelling, many of the windows are still covered in plastic. There's a shortage of glass. And I'm glad that I wasn't here when these rounds hit. I ask for my old room. It's of course no problem. I've got the pick of the hotel.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much.
And it's still got the best view in town.
Now, 5 years ago, standing here, this was a panorama of battle. There were tanks over on that far hill. All the way through the city was just gunfire, and then from outside, rockets had come in and just lob into the city. It was just incredible to see it at peace. It's something I couldn't quite imagine 5 years ago.
But I want to go back to where I was as a correspondent, the front line. The killing grounds of Kabul, where I'd witnessed so much death and suffering. And it wasn't just the humans who suffered. What's so amazing is that the Kabul Zoo is still here. Even more surprising, so are some of the animals, and in surprisingly good condition too, since they were creatures caught in the crossfire.
Well, I guess you'd have to say this is about the saddest bear in the world. But it's a miracle that he's here at all, because during the battle for Kabul, the zoo was the front line, and all around here there are trenches. What's incredible is that the zookeepers stayed here during all that fighting and tended the animals. And they also looked after the trees because everybody wanted to cut them down for firewood. It's just one of those amazing stories that comes out of war.
The bear was unharmed, but the lion was hurt when a grenade was lobbed into his cage. He's blind, but alive. It's here that I first encountered the Islamic warriors whose leaders control this country, the Taliban. They couldn't look less like the fierce champions of Islam demonized in the Western media. And in a place where photography is rigidly policed, they're naturally enough intrigued by my camera. But to place all Taliban in the same fundamentalist camp is not to understand where they're coming from. Most of them just want to see order restored and a better life for their children.
Imagine being a kid growing up with this as your playground. A lot of this has been demined and a lot of the unexploded bombs been taken out. A lot of children lose their legs just having fun.
It's been a daunting first day back in Kabul, back in a ruined city where people still live with the prospect that any day the end of their world could come. I've been invited here to take photos. Yet this is a country where under the Taliban's Islamic code, there are severe restrictions on taking photographs. Tomorrow, I get a permit. But as I was to discover, getting the permit is one thing, making it work, quite another. Morning in Kabul, and sunrise reveals a shattered city. 20 years of fighting has taken a terrible toll on the Afghan capital. This was once the Shah's mausoleum, and this was the old royal palace. Today, they're little more than rubble. But with Shahs and emperors long gone, shepherds run their sheep in the royal grounds. My journey will take me across the country from Kabul to Herat. But before I leave, I need permission from the Ministry of Information to travel to the great Buddhas of Bamyan. And for that, I'll have to wait. And all the time, I'm being watched. The Taliban are everywhere. You can tell them by their black turbans. The word Taliban means religious student. And at the religious school, or the madrasa, they learn the Quran by rote, all 114 chapters of it. By doing this, they hope to interpret Islamic law in a pure, uncontaminated way. Or that's the theory. As a force for change, the Taliban have only been around since 1996. Even so, their rules for living are based on an 8th century text. It determines everything they do, even whether or not I can take photographs. But time is running short if I want to get to the Bamyan Buddhas. There's still no word from the ministry, so it's time to do a bit of public relations. If an army marches on its stomach, let's see if I can appeal to the Talibans. Hidden in a back street is a kitchen, and I love cooking pasta.
Well, what I'm going to cook for the Afghans around here is what's called puttanesca, and it's an Italian pasta. First thing we do is cut up lovely fresh tomatoes.
But be warned, they're often fertilised with human waste, so wash them very carefully.
There's actually a very funny story about a guy who was wanting to smuggle opium out of Afghanistan, and to hide the smell, he actually put the opium down underneath a truckload of onions. Of course, he gets to the border and he gets arrested for smuggling onions, because you're not allowed to take onions out of Afghanistan. They didn't care about the opium.
By now, I'm acquiring quite an audience. The sight of a Westerner cooking for Afghans must be strange indeed.
And that is puttanesca, Afghan style.
See, I'm very hungry.
If you pass that round.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Now for the moment of truth.
Well, I'm very pleased.
Oh, it's very delicious.
I think Afghans are just very polite.
No.
Fortunately, one of
It's
my
okay, yes.
guests is from the Ministry of Information.
I like it.
You like pasta?
Maybe he can put a good word in for us. He obviously likes my cooking, but what about Abdul?
It's nice.
Do you like it?
Yeah, but no, so I think you... Did you forget salt?
No, but it's got capers and anchovies. They're very salty.
Can I use some ketchup?
He wants to put salt and ketchup on it. Okay, I don't think I'm going to change the culinary tastes of Afghanistan in one meal, but you know, we can but try.
Well, it seems to have worked. In the morning, I'm summoned to meet Mr. Fayaz Mohammed Fayaz, Taliban head of information. And as spokesman for the Minister of Foreign Affairs, he's a powerful man indeed. Maybe he can grant me permission to see the Buddhas.
We are very happy that with the formation of Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, from the very beginning, has brought security or stability to the country.
But Mr. Fayaz is also a religious scholar and a strict adherent of Quranic law. So on the one hand, his law forbids the depiction of any human image. On the other, he wants to rebuild tourism and promote Afghanistan to the world. That's his dilemma. He doesn't want to be filmed, but to get his message out, he has to be.
And what do you want the outside world most to understand about the administration here in Afghanistan?
We have put an end to the anarchy, to the civil war in the country, and with that, not only the tourists, but even the journalists could freely visit all corners of the country, and they could succeed to go wherever they wanted, and they could succeed, visited many places.
And that includes us. We get the go-ahead. Ironically, to celebrate the good news, Abdul takes Mr. Fayaz's photograph with my Polaroid camera. So we can go where we like and film who we like? Well, not exactly. What Mr. Fayaz neglects to tell us is that we're still not allowed to film people in towns. Nor does he warn us that he has no control over the most powerful government agency in Afghanistan, the dreaded Ministry for the Promotion of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice. The spies of these religious police are everywhere, invisible but always present. So all filming must be done very discreetly.
Now, we've been given a permit to film in Afghanistan, the first film crew to be allowed to do so by the Taliban government. The problem is, we're not allowed to film anybody. We can only film the country and buildings. So doing this, walking openly in the street and filming, is very much against the law. I could be arrested and our cameras could be taken away and smashed. So, as you can appreciate, this is not going to be an easy film to make.
So unsure of exactly what lies in store, we fire up our Jeep and head for the airport. Our destination? Herat. Once one of the greatest centres of learning in Asia, it was also where one of the greatest spy games was played out. The Afghan city of Herat is 400 miles west of Kabul as the crow flies, and it's been a battleground for thousands of years. In its day, it was one of the greatest centres of culture and learning in medieval Asia. The city is on Afghanistan's western border with Iran. From here, I'll head northeast towards Mazar-e-Sharif before I go to Bamyan. And once more, I'm faced with delays. Abdul heads out to try and get us filming permits, reminding us that in Herat, we're not high on the Taliban's list of priorities.
The Taliban, from the very beginning, they were under criticism from Western media. And that is why they are paranoid.
Abdul is trying to find the local Taliban commander, the only man who can give us the nod. It seems Kabul's ministerial writ doesn't extend to Herat. So while Abdul haggles, I wait in a restaurant specialising in boiled sheep's brains. The minutes turn to hours. My day has been a write-off. Next day, a permit arrives. We can film Herat's ancient university, though there's not much left of it now. It was largely demolished by British soldiers in the 18th century. Earthquakes and war destroyed the rest, but miraculously, the minarets remain. Not even Russian shells managed to fell them. But permission to enter the citadel hasn't come through yet. So to fill in time, I explore a local antique shop.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Very good.
Good morning.
You have a fantastic shop here.
Thank you. Just look it.
Thank you very
Just
much.
look it.
Okay.
Big shop, many things.
Okay.
Maybe glass, silver, copper. Just look it. Just look it.
In a way, it's like a junk shop of history, filled with discarded objects from Afghanistan's turbulent past. Banknotes from Imperial Russia, shoes from a Shah's harem, coins reputedly minted at the time of Alexander the Great. And if you like old weapons, a particularly deadly gun.
This looks like probably the most famous guns in Afghanistan. They're called the Gazelle, and it's what the Afghans used to fight the British for probably the First and Second Wars. And they used to fire these off their horses, this low butt, and they used to hold them very, very high like this. Incredible weapon, I think incredibly hard to aim, but apparently they were very good, very accurate.
But this is what I'm really after. Glassware that's unique to this shop. Just out the back is a kiln where the same family's been making it to the same formula for centuries. And their method? Well, it's a closely guarded secret, handed down from generation to generation. And even with sanctions, they have no shortage of buyers. In fact, they've just got another.
Two pieces, $1.
Two pieces, $1.
I think I'll be buying a lot.
Yes.
At last, permission has arrived from the Taliban. I can film in the Great Citadel. I must say I'm surprised. This is a military base, and pictures would be of strategic interest to an enemy. Yet they let us film. But on one condition. Every person must be removed before we enter. I'd always wanted to explore this fortress because of its role in a forgotten piece of 19th century history. The secret spy wars between Britain and Russia, known as the Great Game. Afghanistan was the gateway to British India, and Russia wanted to control that gateway. Intrepid British and Russian army officers roamed the country in disguise, mapping and spying all the military routes. One of them was Lieutenant Eldridge Pottinger. After being held under siege for months in the Herat citadel, it was Pottinger who saved the day for the Afghans.
Finally, the Persians began to breach the walls, and the Afghans on this side seemed everything was lost. The Grand Vizier sat down in the dust. He was going to give up. But Pottinger grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and marched him towards the invading Persians with his sword waving in the air. This absolutely terrified the Persians. They all fell back, and then the Afghans within the fort followed them out, and they saved the city. Incredible story.
In a way, the Great Game sums up Afghanistan's problem in a nutshell. It's a country sandwiched between rival empires. So for invading armies, it's always been a battlefield on the way to somewhere else. How any of these armies were able to move through Afghanistan boggles the mind. The roads through the mountains are appalling. I'm now heading north, slowly drawing closer to the battlefront and the killing fields, the deadly legacy of more than 20 years of war. The centre of Afghanistan is one of the bleakest wildernesses in Asia. Everything here is influenced by one chilling fact. They've been fighting not for 20 years, but for 2,000 years. For Afghanistan has always been a land of invasion, rival warlords, and violence.
Beautiful little castle, that. And you see them all up and down these valleys. They defend every strategic position. The trouble is, when you're traveling in Afghanistan, you've got to be really careful if you want to go and explore one, because they're covered in minefields from both the Russian time and also from the Civil War.
We're now deep in the mountains of central Afghanistan, on the road to Mazar-e-Sharif, the last major stop before the front line.
I hope that we don't cause them any problems by coming here, but we had to really...
The killing fields, though, extend all the way to the outskirts of the city. This is landmine country.
the drought in Afghanistan, many places in Afghanistan.
And if that isn't enough, there's another scourge. A terrible drought has forced these people out of the nearby mountains into this place, an abandoned barracks in the middle of a battlefield. Unexploded shells and landmines are everywhere. The human toll extracted by starvation and explosion is terrible. This man has lost 3 of his 5 children in the last 2 weeks.
He complained from Hungary, from drought.
Does he have enough to eat now?
Still
Still not enough.
they are hungry.